Why is everyone talking about tactical voting?
Tactical voting.
Tactical voting.
Tactical voting.
It's two words we often hear on the lips of politicians and news presenters during election campaigning. But what does it actually mean? Tactical voting is where a voter chooses a political party they would not usually support in order to prevent another party from winning. YouGov polling for an Electoral Reform Society report showed 1 in 3 2019 voters opted for a tactical vote instead of their preferred party or candidate. In a June 2024 Ipsos survey, 19% of voters said they would vote tactically at the upcoming general election, an increase of 5% on 2019. But why does it exist? To work this out, we have to look at the voting system used to elect MPs to the House of Commons, first past the post. The UK is divided into 650 parliamentary constituencies. Voters select their preferred candidate, and the one with the most votes becomes that area's MP. The party with the most MPs becomes the government, rather than the party with the most votes overall. For example, in areas where the votes for Labour and the Liberal Democrats outweigh those for the Conservative candidate, but neither beats them alone, the Tory candidate wins. Therefore, many votes are considered wasted. This voting method means just one vote can decide the winning candidate, and the overall winning party is usually elected by less than 50% of voters. In 2019, the Conservatives only won 43.6% of the vote. But it's not the only method available.
This government will replace the House of Lords with an elected second chamber, where members are elected by a proportional voting system.
We're going to be having a referendum in May on should we change our voting system. I don't think we should.
The public were offered the chance to switch to the alternative vote in 2011. Under this system, voters put a number by each candidate. For example, 1 for their first choice, 2 for their second, and they may write as many or as few numbers as they wish. An MP is elected if more than half of the voters put down the same favourite candidate. If no candidate receives more than half, whoever comes last is eliminated and their votes are reallocated according to the next highest preference expressed on each ballot paper. If a voter has not marked a preference for any candidate that remains in the contest, then the ballot paper is set aside from the count. There is less worry for voters that they'll be wasting their vote and lessens the appeal of tactical voting. But 67.9% of voters oppose changing the electoral system to the alternative vote. So we still have first past the post in place, and tactical voting is still at play. But how does tactical voting work in practice? Usually with tactical voting, a voter is trying to prevent someone from winning a seat and so needs to work out who to vote for to get that result. There are a range of tools online to help voters figure out who to vote for in their constituency to do this. Another method is vote swapping, where someone agrees to vote for a particular party on someone else's behalf because they know the party they want to vote for in their seat is not likely to win.
So if you're a kind of really staunch Labour voter and you hate the Conservative Party with every fibre of your being, but you live in the southeast somewhere where they might not have any chance of winning, then in that case, if you're one of those people, it probably does make sense to vote for, say, the Dems instead, because you might have a chance of denying your opponent a seat. And you might think, well, the Lib Dems, they're okay. They're not going to form a government. Might deny the Tories a bit of power.
So, tactical voting is not a new phenomenon. But have we seen it actually achieve anything in the past? The term became popular in 1997. This landslide election saw a group called Get Rid of Them campaign across 90 seats where the incumbent Conservative government was vulnerable. More recently, in 2017, an Electoral Reform Society report claimed that 6.5 million people made tactical votes in the election. 20% said they planned to choose an MP who was most likely to beat the one they disliked. It did generate a lot of attention, but its effectiveness has been hotly debated ever since. What it did do was bring tactical voting to mainstream attention.
One of the big examples from kind of the recent Parliament would be the Chesham and Amersham by-election in 2021. The Labour Party in 2019 were third place with about 13% of the vote. And that vote disappeared completely. It went down to below 2%, and the assumption is most of it went to the Lib Dems. The Lib Dems then won that seat. So on the one hand, you think, well, that was a real success for tactical voting. But on the other hand, the Lib Dems won that seat by a margin greater than the Labour vote share that could have potentially moved to them. So it's hard to say for sure that tactical voting was critical, but it's an example where it has happened recently and has been seen to be a success.
What effect could tactical voting have in the 2024 election? According to new analysis by The Independent, more than 100 seats could be primed for tactical voting in 2024. But this would rely on voters actually understanding what tactical voting is. One 2023 study showed 52% of voters could correctly identify the winning party in their constituency. Only 19% could identify who came second.
I think there's much more potential for Liberal Democrat Labour tactical voting, simply because the Liberal Democrats are the second place party in a substantial number of seats, which means that Labour voters might shift to the Liberal Democrats and vice versa. Now, the situation for more right-wing tactical voting is a little bit more problematic. There aren't seats where Reform are obviously the main competitor. So it doesn't make much sense for Conservative supporters to tactically vote for Reform.
Tactical voting's effectiveness still isn't proven, with a greater awareness from the electorate on their voting choices being required. But with first past the post, the method with which we choose our politicians, tactical voting can be a useful tool in getting the representation you want.